Good evening, Lincoln County community members, and thank you for joining us again. Tonight's presentation, let me get to the front screen here. Here we go. Tonight's presentation of our Lincoln County Wildfire Readiness programs will be featuring the Toledo City Fire Department and the East Lincoln County Fire and Rescue. Chief Robeson from the Toledo Fire Department will be joining me as our guest speaker tonight. And we may or may not have someone from Oregon Department of Forestry. I believe they might actually be out on a fire call this evening. So let's go ahead and get started. So our presentations that we're doing tonight is actually derived out of our in-person presentation that we had been doing the prior years. But due to continued COVID conditions, we are still not able to be with you in person. So what we've chosen to do is we took our 2-hour in-person presentation and actually broke it down into 6 individual modules that then allows you, the viewer, to be able to watch that video at any time and sort of pick and choose what interests you. Then we've also added an additional session, which you're watching tonight, that's focuses on an individual fire district in Lincoln County. So tonight, again, we're focusing on East County and Toledo Fire. So if you're watching the live stream video right now, you can email us any questions that you may have, and we'll try to get those answered for you right away. If you're actually logged in through Zoom as an attendee, then you could drop your questions in the chat box, and then Chief Robeson and I will answer those questions as we go, and we'll have plenty of time at the end. And then if you're watching this video at a later time and you still have questions, you are very welcome to email us and we will get those answered or redirected to someone else. Also, when you're on these presentations, it is intended to be a self-learning guide. So when you click on graphics, they will actually take you to a link to other additional information or to the actual graphic that we're displaying. Now on the video, sometimes it is kind of hard to actually see all the words and the graphics that we have. We know that it's just kind of hard to make it large enough that you can actually see it. So we'll actually encourage you when you're watching the video, maybe to have the presentation slides up so you could click on them and then you could full screen the information that we have. So let's get started. So first, we're going to start with our Lincoln County 2021 public service announcement that was created by our public information officers here at the county. And it features your Lincoln County Fire Defense Board, Chief Rob Murphy and Chief Rob Dahlman. For 2021, Chief Rob Murphy was the Fire Defense Board Chief and Chief Rob Dahlman was the alternate. We have new representation for this next, I think they go by fiscal year. So Chief Brian Daniels from Depot Bay Fire will be your Fire Defense Board Chief. And of course, your Lincoln County Sheriff, Curtis Slanders, is also in the video. So give me just a minute here. I'll take myself off and bring over the video.
Wildfire can and does happen here, and we all need to prepare for it. And that's probably the biggest thing to the public is be aware. Be aware, be prepared, know what happens around you, know what happens in the community. Listen to local radio, local media, sign up for Lincoln Alerts so that you have the most time, the best chance of getting early notification if we need to evacuate. I think something the general public, unless they've been through this, never really fully appreciates is how fast it spreads and how it can go from nothing to a firefighter or a sheriff's deputy knocking on your door saying, "Get out now." Sometimes, while we have a great system and we have the ready, set, go, sometimes it goes straight to go. I mean, that's just the reality because of how fast these fires spread. And so the time to start thinking about what do I do in a wildfire isn't when somebody's knocking on your door. That's probably the biggest lesson, I think. The time to start thinking about it, to start planning with your family, to know what you're going to do is really now. And that's why we're doing these messages, because we want people to think about this now, because in August, in September, you should already know what you're going to do.
Yeah, Lincoln Alert should be very much a priority in what they're preparing for their plans. It's a direct communication. We heard a lot of things. Communication wasn't good or wasn't acceptable during this last event, and we know that Lincoln Alerts is one of the things that continued to work and was providing information, timely information, to all the residents in the area. And one of the things that residents can do is make sure that their Lincoln Alerts is up to date, that they have their phone numbers in properly, that their cell phones are in there. If you want to know about a neighbor or family member around, you can put their address in, and there's lots of tools and things you can do to be alerted in the event of not just a wildfire, but any event, any emergency event that goes on. It's an excellent tool, and that's one of the first priorities citizens should do is have that all up to date.
So your personal preparedness is have a plan of what to do if you have to evacuate. And this can be applied not just to fire season, but also if we have other natural disasters that come on. Pay attention to what's going on, know when those alerts come out, be part of and subscribe to the Lincoln Alert system, and make sure that you have, if you were to walk into your house and say, I've got 5 minutes to grab my most essential items, what would I take? What would be important? If you're at a level 1 or a level 2 evacuation for a wildland fire, have those things already gathered up and in your car. Have your birth certificates, your important documents, your computers, anything that you say, I can't live without this. Have that stuff at the door ready to go or in your car ready to go.
I'm just really proud to be part of this community and part of the response that goes into it between the county, between the cities, the different fire districts. It goes all hand in hand, and it's a very collaborative approach to these disasters. And it's also because of, we're prepared well. Jenny Demaris, our county emergency manager, prepares us every year, prepares the community as we're doing here with information, but it's working together. That's the only way that we'll succeed, and we do very well at it.
Visit Lincoln County's website to view the 2021 Wildfire Readiness presentation schedule. These are live events that you can attend via Zoom and ask questions, or you can watch them live streamed on YouTube. There are 6 subject matter areas and 1 event per each fire district. So if you can't make it in person, rest assured we will archive these online for you to review. When you get to the website, just use the search tool or look for the text that says Wildfire Readiness Presentations. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you very much to our public information officers for a great service announcement that they put together for us. Okay, and it looks like we have been joined by Charlie Redheffer from Oregon Department of Forestry, and Charlie will be joining us soon. There he is. Hi, Charlie. Okay, so our administrative overview, we're going to talk a little bit about our sponsors, our seasonal outlook, weather, and drought. And then Chief Robeson is going to talk with you a little bit of information about his fire district and department, what are burning restrictions, understanding wildfire weather warnings, what to do if, how to reach us in calling 911, and then I'll step in with some wildfire be ready tips. And then Charlie's going to join us to talk from Oregon Department of Forestry about the regulated use restrictions. And then we have some additional resources for you to think about to help you in your planning efforts, and plenty of time to answer questions. So our administrative brief. So who are our wildfire advocates? As we know, most emergencies start with a call to our Emergency 911 Dispatch Center, or PSAP agencies. They then dispatch local law enforcement, fire, and EMS agencies to the scene of the event to assist those that are there. Sometimes individuals are taken to our 2 area local hospitals, Samaritan Pacific Communities and Samaritan North Lincoln Hospitals. Pardon me. And then our public works and utility departments help put everything back together the way it was before the event occurred. Your public health entities help us with communicable disease outbreaks, behavioral health issues, and also environmental health. Your elected officials are very important as they make sure that those resources needed by the first responders are available from both state and federal agencies. And then our city, county, and tribal emergency operations centers work collectively with all of these agencies to help with their resource needs, and most importantly, for public information. These presentations are sponsored by your Lincoln County Fire Defense Board, which is made up of each of your fire districts here in Lincoln County, and Oregon Department of Forestry. Also, our friends with Lincoln County Public Health, the American Red Cross, Oregon State University Extension Service, Oregon Coast Community College Small Business Administration, and Oregon Department of Financial Regulation, their Consumer and Business Services. And of course, your Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. So what is our objective? Why are we actually hosting these presentations? Well, if you've actually been a part of or been able to attend one of our Cascadia presentations, you'll notice that this objective is very familiar. Our goal is to strengthen your knowledge of our local wildfire risk and your role in preparedness, response, and recovery. And along with that, we're going to let you know what our role is as local government. So seasonal outlook, weather, and drought. We know lately conditions have been changing. Even today, when I looked at the drought page, it was slightly different than what it was just last week when I did this presentation with some of the other fire districts. So here's something new. I actually didn't know that this forecast was available from the Oregon Department of Forestry until I started putting these presentations together. Well, it's very, very good resource for you. So they provide a 3-month seasonal climate forecast in a video format, again, every 3 months. So when you click on this video here, when you put your mouse on there and click on it, it's going to actually take you directly to their website where you can watch the most current video or ones that they had done previously. Also, our friends at the National Weather Service out of the Portland office, they provide for us twice a year a summer outlook and then a winter weather outlook. It's actually pretty interesting because they talk about last year's weather, the predictions, where we're going, and then we as public safety use this each year at our annual wildfire tabletop exercise that we do to help us as public safety get ready for this season's fire. This season, okay, well, you got it. I said that a little backwards. Okay, so drought conditions. Chief Robeson and I were just looking at this before tonight's presentation, and I said, you know, I think I better take a quick look. And sure enough, the drought monitoring graphic had actually changed from last week. So if you look at it now for Lincoln County, and maybe Chief Robeson and Charlie, you might come back on screen. I just think considering the heat wave and everything that we've had of recent, you know, what does all these dry conditions mean for us here in Lincoln County going forward in this season? There's Charlie.
Well, we're already, we've got 2 engines out on fires right now in Lincoln County. There's a report on 5 Rivers Road and then a small smoldering burn pile elsewhere. I just got back from Klamath Falls for a week on a large fire deployment, which is almost unheard of in June. So we're already way out ahead of pace from where we would normally be.
Okay, so probably no rain or anything that's really expected for this summer, just more of the same. I'm getting both heads shaking, yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right, we'll keep going. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce Chief Larry Robeson, who is your Toledo Fire Department chief, and he's going to first talk a little bit about his department, his volunteers, kind of, you know, what makes up Toledo Fire in East Lincoln County. I think it's fire and rescue. So take it away, Chief.
Hello. Yeah, like she said, your Toledo Fire Chief Larry Robeson. We are also contracted for the surrounding areas around us with our district, which is East Lincoln County Fire and Rescue. And we work with them on responding to calls all around Toledo. The small area here is just a few miles, but our total district, including the district, is going to be somewhere around 54 to 56 miles. We border up to Newport there, about milepost 3. We head up 229 to Siletz to Hudson Loop. We meet up with Newport again on the North Bay Road at about milepost 6, South Bay Road, Elk City, and then we have Eddyville, about a half mile or more. There is where our district, and from Siletz and Newport. Some notes on this so I can try. But with us here, my internet's on. And we are. Am I working? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Just a tiny little bit of delay, but just push through.
I saw there. They are supported by about 40 volts. And
Chief, if you go ahead and turn your video off, and that might fix that lag time.
Cool. And then they were supported by volunteers. Better help good. Extremely fortunate to have. Next slide. For the burn bins, in normal burning, we're going to ask you to burn clean, unpainted materials, yard debris, stuff that doesn't put off too many noxious odors. And then we're going to get into some burn restrictions. So as a county, all the chiefs get together. You heard from Chief Dahlman and Chief Murphy earlier, and we've decided when we were going to, weather related, shut down the burn season. And so at that point, we're going to cut back the yard debris burning and put it only on cooking fires, warming fires, or s'mores pits. And with those, once again, the safety in the beginning of all of that is going to be always, please maintain your fires, be there, watch them, and have something there that'll put them out when they get out of control. Hose, a shovel, something, earth to bury it or whatever the case, but manage the fire and never leave it unattended. If it does get beyond where you're at, please call 911 early rather than late, because we are primarily a volunteer department, so it does take a couple of minutes for us to get there. So please, if you feel like your fire has gone somewhere you don't want it to, call early rather than late. Next slide, please, Jen. So for your restrictions, you're going to know what we're doing a little bit by feeling the weather conditions out there. It's a time of year. Normally by after the 4th of July, we have put burn restrictions in place regardless of what's going on with the weather. It seems like the last few years we're getting a little bit earlier. This year we chose to do it in June, and it was completely a weather related decision, and that put our restrictions in place. If you're ever curious about the current weather conditions, fire conditions, you can look on message the fire department on our Facebook page, look on the city's Facebook or web page, call the Toledo Police Department, which is also the dispatch center. Check with them at the 5555 number, and stop in the fire department here in Toledo if you ever have any questions, and grab one of us. You can find the local conditions. One thing we're doing to try to get that message out there a little bit about some of this fire weather is we are attending the Thursday market on Memorial Field. So we'll be down there, Toledo Fire Department, on Memorial every Thursday from 10 to 3. And we're going to try to change up the messaging a little bit so it's not just some stagnant piece of paper. Currently, of course, wildland is our emphasis, and we're going to slowly rotate into other topics. The 1, 2, 3, go, Lincoln alerts, and then we get into some of the tsunami and other rescue issues that we need to worry about. So Thursday market, if you're around in Toledo, come on down. Next slide, please, guys. So what is fire weather? You hear us talk about, you're going to hear red flag warning. We're going to talk about fire weather. Fuel, weather, topography, or terrain is really what's going to tell us where and what a fire is going to do. We always have the fuel and we always have the topography. And when we get fire weather involved in this, it really puts us on edge a little bit, because things that would normally burn very well. And we have the terrain changes quite a bit, so that way the access can be limited. So when we get into what they're going to refer to as a red flag warning is when the winds switch and they're going to come out of the east. Going to come over the mountains and they're going to warm up and they're going to dry out. And the first couple times it happens, we're feeling pretty good because the air is nice and warm and dry, but that starts to really quickly dry things out. And really, the things that would not burn before will burn now. And kind of an example of that was we already had in April, we had a red flag warning, which was pretty early for us. And we had a fire burning in Toledo in town that was really, it was being pushed downhill by the winds, which is not what we would expect a fire to do. So over the last couple days, we didn't really have a red flag warning, but we had a lot of heat. The thing that changed that for us was the humidity. That's where the humidity starts to drop in a red flag. Yesterday on the 28th, we had a higher humidity in the 30s. So although very warm, very hard on us, did not prompt the things to dry out, the fuels to dry out, the small, light, flashy fuels that we worry about because of the humidity. And then today, the humidity is down a little bit, but we are, or the humidity's up, but the temperature is down. So very happy to see that here. We have the coastal influence, the weather blowing in on us. So that changes everything. Next slide, please, Jenny. Oh, you were ready for that. So we're going to get into some red flag warnings versus watches. Red flag warning versus a fire weather watch. What those are going to change kind of is the duration that it's going to hit you and how long it's going to last. So if you look at fire weather warning, it's going to be what's going on in the next 12 to 24 hours, where a watch is the next 24 to 36. So it's a little bit out there further. Either one of those should put us on edge just a little bit as far as decision making for outdoor activities. And next slide, please, Jenny. So understanding the two, the short answer on those is when we get into that weather, things are dry, they dry out quickly. In a warning, think of it like you might not want to go do something. You might not want to go welding or grinding outside and throwing sparks into the grass that you've done 100 times but have never caught fire. But under these conditions, you might not want to do that because things are drying out. Shooting into large piles of debris, done it 100 times maybe and never had a problem. You start getting into a warning, might not want to do that because things that never burned before will suddenly start to burn. You get into extreme fire behavior for the watch, don't do that. Just don't even think about what I don't want to do. Don't do that. Be extremely careful in the woods. Parking your car while it's running and hot in grass where the undercarriage is still hot and warm and can light something underneath. Don't do that. Get off on asphalt or on something hard skate and to be a little bit better off there. So kind of the difference between a warning and a watch. You might not want to go do something, grinding, welding, fire pit. When we get into the what, don't do that. Next slide, please, Jenny. So the speed of wildfires. Fuel, weather, and topography, like we mentioned, they're going to dictate a whole bunch about what we do in fires and where they're going to go and how they're going to travel. Well, like we said, we've already got the fuel and the topography, and then when we get the dry weather, it changes quickly. So Toledo is a tree city, USA. So we encourage you to have trees. We encourage the growth. We don't trim them back like we maybe should sometimes to get that defensible space. But realize that when you do that, when you leave these fuels from the ground to the sky, that's where it can go very rapidly in a vertical manner, even if it's up a tree or on the ground. So by definition, Tree City, USA, we've already put ourselves in the middle of a wildland urban interface, 2 blocks off of Main Street. So we need to really be careful when we're watching these hot weather days, dry weather days. Not just the heat, it's the dry. I think next slide, please. I'm blowing through this. It's terrible. So what to do? What to do if you're out doing something and you either find or start the fire? Please call 911 quickly, early rather than late, please. Well, like I've said, we're primarily 911 is volunteer response from the fire department. Even though you may have one or two paid staff coming with it, the bulk of the body will be volunteers. It's going to take us a minute to get there. So call early rather than late. I'd much rather show up and look at something you put out and maybe we help, or get turned around because there's nothing at all. Earlier rather than late. If you are burning, please never leave it unattended, and always have something there, water or some sort of tool to help put that fire out. If the fire does get beyond what you can do, evacuate the area. Call 911, of course, evacuate, and tell the neighbors, tell the other residents around you that this is what's going on and it's a fire and you need to go right now. So what to do if you see smoke in the distance? We're not talking about the fires that you see over your fence, that the neighbor's burning, which is going to be a clean woody debris, correct? Because we know we don't burn things that are painted. We don't burn construction debris. But if you see smoke in the distance, quite a ways out, miles maybe, it's probably already been seen by somebody and called in. But if you have to, or you feel the need, call in, location, what it's doing. A lot of times these are going to be prescribed burns in our area. Look around at a lot of the logging slots are going to burn those in the spring, not right now. So if you do see something like this right now, there's a good chance that it is an actual accidental start fire, wildfire. So call 911 and monitor. We will get the smoke blowing in on us from other people's fires. We've had Canada, California, and everybody to the east. There's smoke blowing in on us. And so that does happen. And that could be a very, get a little bit, make you antsy because you're not sure where it's coming from. And it's literally 100 miles away. But if worst case scenario, remember 911 is always there for you. I believe that was it. Now to tie in your fire response capabilities in the entire county. You look all the way up there in the green top of your screen to the north of our county is going to be North Lincoln Fire and Rescue, largest response area in the county. Just down from them, you're going to get into Depot Bay. They're going to run right along the coastline there and partner up with Newport Fire Department City and District. They have a rural district as well. Down the coastline a little bit to Seal Rock. And Seal Rock is going to border up along with Central Coast Fire, who goes way up the gorge there, up 34. And then you're going to hit Yachats Fire, and they go up the river there a ways. In the middle of the whole thing is Toledo Fire District butting up against Newport on Highway 20 and Siletz on 229. And a lot of our area is along Highway 20 is all protected by us. There is a lot of a very bland color in the middle of all that, and I think we're going to get an explanation on who takes care of that.
Yeah, Charlie, do you want to talk a little bit about what is all that tan area mean to us if we live out in that area?
Well, that area is protected by the Oregon Department of Forestry for wildfires. But in that area, if there's a structure there, it is an unprotected resource. Unfortunately, our folks are trained for wildland fire suppression, and that's what we're geared for as far as our equipment goes as well. So we're very good at that, but we don't have the equipment or the training to put out house fires. So if folks are out in that area, they might want to make sure their insurance package is good and understand that there will be a delay for structure protection. We can and will call for mutual aid for help with that, but it's a little bit at the discretion and availability of what the other departments have available. So just understand that there'll be a delay and we'll need a little help with partnerships to do any structure protection in that area.
Well, and perfect timing because then just as you mentioned your insurance policy. So I am one of those folks that live out in the unprotected area. I've been there for almost 20 years. And when folks move out to that area or they take over a property, they're always quite surprised by how come their homeowner's property insurance is so expensive. And it's because you are in an unprotected area or you're within, the distance is too great to a staffed fire station, not just a rural station, but it actually has to be one that's staffed. And so then that does take a toll on our insurance. Also with that, I just want to make sure if you have looked at the list of our other presentations we have available, we did one on finance, and I would really encourage the folks that are listening to watch that presentation. Nancy Yule, who does the presentation on behalf of Oregon Department of Financial Regulation, really talks about pre-fire and then post-fire recovery, working with your insurance company, making sure you have your policy limits set the right way. So definitely worth your time to watch that presentation. Okay, so next slide, Chief was talking about how to reach us. We have this non-emergency phone numbers roster for the public safety agencies here in Lincoln County. So you'll notice that both law enforcement and fire and EMS, which is Pacific West Ambulance and South Lincoln Ambulance, are all represented, as well as our Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon Department of Transportation for trip check, and then Oregon State Police Dispatch, which is based out of Newport off, not the dispatch, but their coastal unit. So the numbers are here, and whichever the ones that are in your home area where you work, I really encourage you to put those phone numbers right into your phone so you're able to dial that non-emergency number at any opportunity we can to not overwhelm 911 dispatchers with non-emergency calls. It's good to use that non-emergency number. Okay, also we get community members that ask us, oh, I'm nervous, should I call 911? I don't know if my chest, if this is it or if that is the reason. So here's a great cheat sheet, if you will. The 3 dispatch centers and I got together and we talked through their protocols, our understanding, what's in the best interest of the public, and we created this sort of definition sheet about when is it appropriate to call 911, when is it appropriate to use the non-emergency number, and or any other agencies. Like if you have a power outage, you shouldn't be calling dispatch to find out if there's a power outage. You need to call your utility provider if you still have internet access or mobile access. They're generally really good about putting those power outages on their website, but if you don't have power at home, it might be a moot point. Again, so great thing to print off, have handy if you have kids at home that have their own phones or they're able to use the home landline number, then this is a great resource to communicate to them. So wildfire be ready tips. We have 2 presentations, protection from wildfire for your home and property. Oregon Department of Forestry and Oregon State University joined me on that, really go in depth about that defensible space. And then we did a presentation on emergency evacuation and emergency notification system. So both of those presentations will really give you much more in-depth review. But again, Lincoln Alerts is our primary notification system that we use here in Lincoln County to notify you. Each person in your household who has their own mobile phone should really have their own profile. Do a wellness check at least once a year to make sure that your information is up to date. And also we've made some great software updates. We're now part of the state bought a statewide system, and so we get to maintain Lincoln Alerts. We've had it since 2011, but now there are more features to the program. So you can get specific weather alerts that you're interested in straight to you. Doesn't have to come to me first, then I send them to you. So a lot of new features that are available to you in your Lincoln Alerts profile. And then know your evacuation levels. The state of Oregon has adopted the Ready, Set, Go program. And so no matter where you're at in the state, level 1, level 2, and level 3 has the same definition, just as we have in the little graphic there from the Oregon State Fire Marshals with Bigfoot. Level 1, be ready. We want you to prepare, monitor, and pack your valuables. Level 2, you need to be set to go, be set to evacuate at a moment's notice. Levels 2 is not where you're kind of getting ready and thinking about it, like you really need to be ready to go. And then a level 3 means you are in the door, in the driveway, and out the door, out the driveway you go. Now, if you have access and functional needs folks at home or pets or livestock that you want to evacuate, or if you have an RV or a boat or ATVs that you're going to take with you, you really need to be evacuating at an earlier time frame. So by the time you get to your level 2, you are out the driveway with those vulnerable family members, pets, livestock, and any mobile equipment that you want to take with you. We don't want you getting caught up in road congestion or traffic jam. So do leave early if you have any of those conditions. So some other tips to help you with those planning efforts. We have your Wildland Fire Action Guide. It's a little booklet you can download. There are some checklists that you can fill out ahead of time, or sort of, making sure you've done your assessment. Think about that early evacuation, as we talked about. Comply with local warnings about evacuations. Don't wait until the last minute to evacuate, and don't underestimate how fast fire progresses. Each of the things that both Chief Robeson and Charlie have talked about, as well as the public safety service announcement, fire can move very quickly, especially if we're under those red flag warning or fire weather watch conditions. So Charlie's going to talk to us a little bit about public regulated use and a little bit about industrial fire restrictions, and maybe just talk a little bit about our local Toledo, Oregon Department of Forestry district office.
Sure. The Toledo, Oregon Department of Forestry covers all of Lincoln County for private lands and BLM lands. We're responsible for fire suppression on those lands. And we're funded through a combination of taxpayer, general fund, Oregon taxpayer money, and landowner taxes for fire patrol. Right now, we do have public use restrictions in effect, and we are in regulated use. So we have quite a few things that are regulated right now, and then we have a plan to go into high here starting the 30th of June. And so here's a representation of our website for where our public fire restrictions are. You can go on the ODF website and click anywhere in Oregon, and it will pop up your public fire restrictions. Here's a representation of the activities that are prohibited during the different levels of fire danger. So some things that are allowed in low fire danger are not allowed in moderate, and then fewer things are allowed during high fire danger, and then all of these activities are banned during extreme fire behavior. And we will be moving from moderate to high on the 30th.
And so Charlie, just again, talking about the homeowner's insurance and my personal liability, some folks may not really understand, but I see, and it's kind of hard. We know the words are hard to read on this. When you look at it in real, you can see it very clearly. But if I'm cutting wood for chains, if I'm using my chainsaw and I'm cutting wood for my wood stove, this is not the time of year to be out in the woods doing that. And you've got a really great liability story, if it can be called a great liability. It's actually pretty sad, but about the Stouts Creek fire, could you maybe just, tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, unfortunately, the Stouts Creek fire, I believe 2014, 2015, one of those, it started in Southern Oregon, and it was started by two different fire starts that grew together. And it was both of the fire starts started from people mowing cured dry grass in the afternoon. So two different people sparked a fire. Those two fires grew together. It took more than a month to suppress the fire. Two different large incident management teams took turns trying to manage that fire. A lot of air resources were used. And the total bill to put that fire out was $38 million. And in Oregon, if there was willful, malicious, or negligence involved in the starting of a fire, people can be held liable for the suppression cost. And two people were billed for that $38 million.
Thank you. And by great, I just wanted to emphasize it was a great example of why you don't do these activities when these public regulated use restrictions are in place, because it's just not a good thing to do, and it's detrimental, and it could be. So also for both of you, 4th of July is around the corner. I see all the fireworks stands are already open. So what does that mean for fireworks in the city and fireworks out in the unprotected area?
I can answer that for the Oregon Department of Forestry real simply. Fireworks are always banned in the forest. And in anything that any lands that the Department of Forestry has protection for, fireworks are banned year round, regardless of the holiday.
Chief?
Well, we have what's legal in Oregon, and please be safe. It seems like the injuries happen when we're lighting them off, but the fires start when we put them into a plastic bucket or a plastic garbage can. So either leave them on the ground and soak them and pick them up in the morning, or put them into a metal container and very much drown them. Be extremely careful where your sparks are flying. We're into some pretty dry weather, so please be careful with after the fireworks as much as during.
Okay, well, thank you. And then Charlie, I think this is just your, let me go to the next slide here. This is just industrial fire. What does industrial fire mean versus public? Who could you just give us a point of reference of who are those folks?
Sure, these are fire regulations for our industrial operators out in the forest. So people conducting forestry operations or running machinery out in the forest will notify us of their activity and per state law, and then we regulate what their activities are during fire season. So we'll have them shut down at a certain time of the day based on what the humidity is and the temperature. And right now we're in IFPL 1, but as we move to high fire danger, our industrial fire precaution level will go to 2. So it's a slightly earlier shutdown and a longer fire watch.
And so I know just, you know, my family history is East County. So I guess that's what they're referring to when they say they've shut the woods down, is really you've implemented these industrial fire restrictions to a certain time that they can no longer have activities.
Absolutely. It's mainly regulating those hot afternoons where our humidity is very low, our temperature is high. It's very easy to start a fire with friction from logging equipment or other activities in the woods. So we ask people to keep those activities to times of the day where the humidity is higher, the temperature is lower. And then when they're done, please have a fire watch so that they can make sure nothing's started.
Okay, all right. Well, moving on to some additional resources to help you with your planning efforts. So as we try to do with our other presentations, we really encourage those community members to build your survival skills or your own personal toolbox of skills. So always first aid and CPR are very valuable in all emergency situations, whether it may be a community disaster or you're helping a neighbor, you're at a restaurant. First aid and CPR can always help mitigate and save someone's life. The American Red Cross, they have actually 2 primary purposes here for us in Lincoln County. The first one I know Chief Robeson would be very familiar with. If an individual community member or family has a structure fire of just their house alone, the fire districts then call upon the American Red Cross to help that family member with temporary housing, essential needs, hygiene, even extra clothes to get them by until they can contact their own insurance agency and sort of get their recovery process going. They also are able to provide sheltering services. Again, those sheltering services are that initial startup for those evacuees or survivors from that disaster situation. In the case of Echo Mountain Fire, across the entire state, the American Red Cross provided sheltering services all the way through, I think, until December, when it was handed over to Department of Health and Human Services from the state when they took it over to relieve the Red Cross. So they're always looking for volunteers. It takes many hands to be able to provide those services. They work collectively with our other public safety agencies here in Lincoln County. So we consider them part of Team Lincoln County Public Safety. Amateur radio or ham radio operators are part of our Lincoln County Auxiliary Communications. You do have to have your training before you can become a Lincoln County Auxiliary Communications volunteer. But you can go to our website and find information about how to self-study. We offer the test a couple times a month here in Lincoln County. So you can self-study or look to see when we're going to offer the next class. Medical Reserve Corps is a new volunteer group for Lincoln County. Obviously, Medical Reserve Corps, the name gives it away. They are our volunteer group for medical professionals, either currently active folks or even retirees. They were very helpful during the Echo Mountain Fire as they provided the medical fragile shelter operations for those folks who required medical care because they were homebound or had some limitations or challenges, but they didn't necessarily need to go to one of our area hospitals. CERT chapters of Lincoln County, you do have to have your basic CERT chapter, your CERT training first, so Community Emergency Response Team. Those chapters are North Lincoln Fire District, Depot Bay Fire District, Newport Fire, and then South County. All three fire districts are together in one agency. Right now, we don't have one for East County, but we're hoping someday that the cities of the tribe or someone will be able to sponsor those. So that training, again, you have to take the training ahead of time. But here's the good news. You don't have to join a volunteer group to take the training. It is a nationally or federally recognized program. It is free. So any individual can take the CERT training, use it to help in your neighborhood during times of emergencies. And then if you decide you want to volunteer with any of those chapters, you can. Map Your Neighborhood is a great way to really think about neighborhood planning for disasters or emergency response. There's a great video. We have all the brochures. We've got the packets, neighbors meeting neighbors, thinking about how to build up your cash for your neighborhood area, building your skill sets again. Again, it's all about the preparedness response and the eventual recovery for those community groups. So additional resources, we talked a little bit about Lincoln Alerts, our seasonal wildfire readiness information for Lincoln County Emergency Management, and then our new page, Active Wildfires for Lincoln County. It's kind of new. We had this page before, but we've all agreed after the Echo Mountain fire that that page was too hard to find. So now it's right at the front of our County Emergency Management page. And once we have an active wildfire that affects a population, meaning we need evacuations, then the county public information officers will link that to the front page of the county website, and it will stay there so you can easily click it and find it. You can go and look at it today. It has all of the fields of information that we will fill in once the fire gets started. Once the public information officers has the information to fill that in. It really coincides with our county call center to be able to help answer questions. And what we try to do is get the general public to refer to the county website, leaving the call center for those that are directly affected by that wildfire, the evacuees. So that way they can call in, talk to someone in person, get that information that they need. Current conditions. This is an area where we have pretty much all the live data that will come to us to be able to give to you for informational purposes, such as river levels, weather alerts that come from the National Weather Service, tsunami alerts, USGS earthquake warnings. We have tripcheck.com. There's even air monitoring. If there was a hazardous material event, all of these things are bookmarked there. When you go to that page, the upper portion is listed in the order of how the most frequently accessed. So we see people really click on this information the first, so we put it at the top. But down at the bottom, everything is relisted, but in alphabetical order. And then the videos that I talked about at the very beginning, these are the modules that we've put together for you. They're all done. The videos are there. You can click on them and review them anytime you would like. So module 1 was financial and business preparedness, the financial meaning you as an individual community member or family. Animal preparedness, Laura Ireland, our Animal Services Director, provided information on during evacuations, and then also recovery for your pets and livestock. And then property protection by understanding wildfire risk. Oregon Department of Forestry and I co-hosted that. Emergency notifications and evacuations. And this was talking more about not just Lincoln Alerts, but all the other resources we have available to us, how you can stay informed. And then with the evacuations, what to expect when you get the call or the deputy or fire official is knocking on your door and telling you you're already at a level 3, you need to go now. And then Mike Johnson from the American Red Cross, our local liaison, we did a presentation on sheltering with the American Red Cross, what to expect, what you should bring with you. And then I provided a presentation on the medically fragile persons shelter. So if you have a member in your family that needs to be in the medical fragile shelters person, you'll know what to expect, what to bring with you when you arrive. And then air quality considerations. Many folks tell us ahead of time, I'm very affected by smoky conditions. I really want to be as informed as I can. We provide you with information to the air monitoring websites, talk about what you can do for preparedness and during those events for yourself and your animals or pets. And then we did another half-hour session on preparedness planning for homes, families that have access and functional needs persons in their household. They do require a lot lot of extra effort and planning and different resources that need to be available, and having alternate alternate caregivers that may be outside of your normal crew so that you have access to those resources that you'll need. So other resources, State of Oregon, lots of resources there. Oregon State University was also doing their Wildfire Wednesdays. They have these as recorded sessions, so you can look at those as well. Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon Health Authority, Office of Oregon Emergency Management. I did list the state of California. They're a little farther advanced than the state of Oregon for preparing their community members. They've had a lot more practice than we have, although I will say I'm very pleased to say that Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, Mariana, your state fire marshal, is really wrapping up that capability for public outreach. So I see a lot of new resources being made available for Oregonians across the state. Federal and national, ready.gov, National Fire Protection Agency. That's where we get our Ready, Set, Go program. They have a FireWise community, which we talk about in our module with Oregon Department of Forestry, and then American Red Cross, their website. They have a lot of good preparedness resources as well. Whew, boy, that's a lot. So I'm just going to take a quick check here to see if we have any questions already in the queue, which we don't. So we'll just give it a few seconds here. So Chief Robeson and Charlie, how about any closing comments or final thoughts that you'd have for our viewers here today?
I just hope everybody can enjoy this wonderful weather we're having, but do it safely and keep us bored.
Great. Charlie?
Absolutely. If you have any plans that involve use of fire, maybe change your plans and enjoy some air conditioning or something like that. There's lots of great things we can do around the state that don't involve fire. And this is just a time period and a situation where we shouldn't.
Yep. Great. Okay. Well, still no more chats there. So again, if you have any questions for myself or Chief Robeson from Toledo or Charlie from Oregon Department of Forestry, feel free to email any of us. Our information is right there on that website, so you can click on that. And with that, I will thank my guests very much for joining me here tonight. We have 2 presentations left. Tomorrow, I believe that we do Newport Fire, and then finishing up, our last area will be Sluts Valley Fire out in the rural area. So with that, thank you both very much, and we will conclude our presentation for the evening. So thank you both.